Hello, hello, fearless listeners. Are you ready for another episode of Let Fear Bounce? It's the podcast that's all about conquering challenges and facing our fears. I'm your host, Kim Langling, and each week we'll dive into inspiring stories, expert insights, and practical tips to help you turn your fear into your greatest ally. So sit back, relax, grab that cup of coffee, and let's discover how to make fear our bouncing board towards a life filled with endless possibilities right here on Let Fear Bounce. Have you asked yourself who's going to take care of your pet should something happen to you? Well, I've got an answer for you. The Do-It-Yourself Pet Estate Will Kit that gives you peace of mind that your family pet will be cared for when you are no longer physically able to care for them, with easy step-by-step instructions that guide you through the task of completing forms necessary to add your furry loved one to your existing will. Visit KimLanglingAuthor.com to find out more. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Let Fear Bounce. This is Kim Langling, your host, and I am so happy that you are spending just a small part of your day with myself and my special guest today, coming to us from Germany, Nisha Lehmann. She is a mobile designer and UX contributor by day, but by night, she explores her passion of providing new and creative ways to promote better mental health. And to that end, she has developed an app that addresses the gaping holes that exist in the current mental health process. Now, the name of that app, folks, is Confidential Conversations, and it's available on the App Store and on Google Play. I was just enthralled with the whole concept of the app and so excited to talk to you, Nisha. So welcome to Let Fear Bounce.
Thank you, Kim.
Okay, so you did this in your spare time, and I'm not a techie person, but I also know that creating an app is not something that you can just do quickly. And first off, I want to ask what made you, because off mic, you had said you felt a sense of urgency to get this app created and out into the world. What was the reason for that sense of urgency for you?
Well, to be perfectly transparent, I was also drowning in my own set of mental health issues. And many of them somehow came around the same time. I don't think I was struggling with anything that is super novel or new or anything like that. I, Looking back on it now and doing a kind of self-analysis or self-diagnosis, whatever you want to call it, I think it was a combination of a lot of things. I definitely was suffering from burnout at work, which I think many people can relate to now. Post-COVID pandemic, we finally realized that burnout is like actually a real mental health issue. But I had had it many years before. In addition to that, the challenges of becoming a new parent, taking on that new responsibility, the financial situation I found myself in, having kind of transitioning between jobs, leaving the job that was causing the burnout, but struggling to find another one that could offer me less burnout or no burnout at all. And in between that, having a child and trying to bring life into the world, for me was all consuming, and I really felt like I was drowning, just with no escape, really. And I am a person that is, well, I'm a bit of a nerd. I guess you can tell that from my bio. Um, I uh, I do a lot of market research before I take on any projects, and what I really needed and wanted was a kind of outlet to be able to talk to other sufferers of burnout, of postpartum depression, of having a miscarriage or raising a child or becoming a new parent, infertility issues. I mean, unfortunately, there's absolutely no struggle to find mental health issues that exist now. Um, what I really was looking for was an outlet to be able to talk to other people like that who were experiencing the same thing or who had experienced the same thing and might be able to provide me some signposts or some guidance on how I should react in situations. Is it normal to have these feelings at this time and so on? On one level, a therapist can certainly provide that for you, but I'm quite skeptical around therapists, just to be perfectly transparent, simply because I don't think a therapist can relate to you the same way a survivor can relate to you. I think the therapist can only try to guide you through your feelings and try to make you feel better about yourself and try to also provide you with good experiencing too. On the therapy front, it was quite generic because it has to be very high level, it has to be very overarching. It's not realistic to expect that therapist is suffering from the same thing you are, or understands it properly. And what I really needed was that kind of community where there wasn't any stigma, where I could talk to people that could really get it, who I didn't need to have a lot of explanation. I didn't really need to have a lot of justification for my feelings. It was just like, well, I'm going through this and I'm feeling like this. And I could get the kind of support that I needed that people around me couldn't give me because they didn't understand what I was feeling. And at that time, which was about 4 years ago now, there weren't very many outlets for this. There really just weren't the outlets available that protected your identity, that actually took your privacy into consideration. What I was finding were Facebook group forums and things like this, where you could talk about anxiety and you could talk about very strategic mental health issues where that were already kind of accepted in society. So having high stress, having anxiety, having depression, those were the three that I found, but none of them could really directly apply to me. Maybe the high stress one, but if it's connected to my public profile, I was simply uncomfortable with talking about my own issues in a forum like that en masse to people that might or might not get it. And so that's really what stemmed the creation of this app, the need of having a more intimate circle of people where the number of users is capped at a certain number, so you're never talking to more than 6 or 7 people, and all of them are struggling with the same thing you are. It seems very rudimentary looking back at it, like why on earth didn't this exist before? But it exists now, and that's confidential conversations.
That I think it's a beautiful thing, honestly. And I like how you mentioned, I appreciate how you mentioned that it's capped the conversations to 6 or 7 people. So on your in your app, are there like different type of rooms when you get in there, when you get into the app? Because I've not been in the app, but when you get in, are there rooms by topic of, issue that you might be living with right now? How's it
Indeed.
set up?
Yeah, it's very similar to this. So basically, you log in with a PIN. So you log in with the way you would log into your bank or the way you would log into maybe your phone or so. You put in a 6-digit PIN, and you have to please make sure you remember it, because one of the cornerstones of this app is that the admins don't know anything about you. All I know from an admin perspective is what kind of device you have, if you have an Android or an iPhone, and the geography from which area you downloaded the app. But beyond that, I don't know anything about you. And we very deliberately do not collect any PII data or demographic data on the users, because we're not doing it to try to sell you something. We're not doing this service is not to try to push you something else. This is the service. That's it. So take it or leave it, basically. Um, but you log in like this, and then everything is categorized and subcategorized. So we have different categories that are around substance abuse related issues, that are around trauma, that are work related, that are relationship related, that are societal. So if you're struggling with identity issues or discrimination, or I mean, there's so many. And then there's one that's also tech, just focused on tech. That's a brand new one, right? So if you suffer from addictions to social media, to your phone, which was a real one for me just recently, if you struggle with doom scrolling, or you struggle with catfishing, or any of these new things that have come up just in the last like 2 years, right? Um, we try to categorize them as best we can, and then we kind of have this miscellaneous other category that catches the rest. But you define your own experience, right? So you might have had an experience that led to high stress, which leads to PTSD, which leads to something else, right? You kind of do an informal diagnosis on your own. We don't diagnose you, but we also want you to be able to join as many groups as possible. The problem with mental health is often, many times, issues will bleed into each other.
Yeah.
So high stress will lead to anxiety, will lead to depression, will lead to alcoholism, will lead to. So unfortunately, you have to you have to be able to join multiple groups. It's very hard to pinpoint what started your mental health issue, but being able to talk about the different facets around your mental health might help you diagnose what exactly are you suffering from, and how can you then. So you might have to experiment a bit with the groups in terms of what you're struggling with, because I know for me, I didn't know either at the beginning what it was, what exactly started what was the catalyst for the downward spiral. But in joining several different groups and having several different conversations, I was really able to try and understand, okay, this might actually be linked to postpartum depression. This might actually be linked to the burnout I was mentioning earlier. I mean, there's a lot of different factors that play in, and talking about your mental health also helps you compartmentalize it in a way. So you attack your mental health from a lot of different angles to really try to understand how can you address each of these different issues as one kind of holistic solution.
Now, how is it grow? How is the app growing? Is it just a continuous? It's by membership or?
So you pay to download it, but
Mhm.
there's no cap on the restriction of number of people that can download it. And right now, I think we sit at close to 300 users. It's pretty new, I would say, because it was just launched last year, so it's not been around that long yet. Our goal clearly is to get up to 1,000 by the end of the year, or not by this time next year. Sorry, and then to try and also make some enhancements and additions, because the reason why it's not growing very quickly, it stems from this urgency that you were mentioning earlier. So rather than add a lot of frills and a lot of additional things, my goal was really to just get it as from a user friendly standpoint, just get it as kind of simplistic and bare bones as possible. So it's very clear what you have to do, what the app is for, but there's not much else in it. There's not a lot of frill, there's not a lot of additional stuff, there's not a lot of option other than just being able to talk about your mental health. And that was very deliberate at the beginning. And what we're seeing now is actually there's so much potential for this app in terms of
Mhm.
enhancements. So what we really want to do is to be able to integrate a library of digital media and video games that actually specifically talk about mental health. There's a whole subset of video games that are developed by game developers that have suffered from OCD, that have suffered from sexual assault or whatever it is, and have been able to put that into a video game. And it's such a therapeutic thing to play yourself if you're suffering from that, because you are separated from the mental health issue, but you're still experiencing it without reliving your own trauma. And I think the potential for video games to be able to to play a role in the betterment of your mental health is massive. And so that was one thing we really wanted to go out of our way to include when it comes to enhancements. We also want to be able to have praise walls so people in the group can post their accomplishments. Today I didn't drink for 30 days, or today small things that you would never look back and go, wow, this was a huge milestone. But when you're struggling with your mental health, every day is a huge milestone. Every day you don't do something, every day you refrain from something, every day you don't think about what happened to you. It's a huge step forward in your recovery, and we want people to be able to post their joy and share it in the groups, and also overall to really see and track the success of the users. So these are just a few of the enhancements that we really want to integrate into the next iteration of the app, sorry. And also we want to make it free. We don't want there to be any barrier to entry, to be honest. The only reason we make it paid now is because we really didn't want ads in the app. And that because ads can be quite triggering, especially when you're talking to a group of mental health strugglers, people who struggle with their mental health, right? We want to try to protect the privacy and the intimacy of the groups as much as possible. And if you pay a little bit and we can avoid the ads thing, then that's already, for us at least, a really big step in the right direction.
Now, the cost to download it, at least when I looked, was 99 cents.
Yes, still 99 cents.
So 99 cents is affordable for most people, you know?
Well, indeed, but we also know that people expect things now for free. I mean, it's a different kind
Yes.
of cost. You expect things for free, but then you sell them your data, right? Which is something we don't want to collect from our users. So That's why, again, that's also why we made it paid, because you keep your data for you. Your stories are for you. This has to feel like a safe space. If it doesn't, we haven't done our job.
Right.
So, and mental health is already so difficult for a lot of people to talk about openly. And so, creating that kind of environment, that atmosphere where you feel supported, where you can talk to people that don't know you, they don't know anything about you. All they know is that you're struggling with alcoholism too, or that you're struggling with bipolar disorder, or you're struggling with gender bias at work, whatever it is. um, that's all anybody knows about you: your gender, your ethnicity, your not nothing else. Nobody knows anything else. And we deliberately designed the app in that way, or I deliberately designed the app in that way, to really make sure that you feel protected, and it's private, because it shouldn't matter those other factors, to be honest. The kind of mental health care that you get, if you're a survivor of sexual assault, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, an Asian or a Hispanic, whatever it is. I believe the experience of surviving a sexual assault translates across all of those lines for survivors. And so, if you can talk about your experience openly with other survivors who understand you, or who can provide you, like I said, tips, ideas, routines, tricks, things you can do to kind of outsmart yourself a bit. Because that's the other thing with mental health: you're fighting yourself a lot
Mhm.
of the time. You're fighting your own bad thoughts. So trying to find ways to trick yourself is it works, or distract yourself somehow, or whatever it is. So I think, yeah, I think that's really the reason why we went this route. But again, we don't want there to be barrier to entry. I mean, you say it's affordable, and that's true for a lot of people, but 99 cents goes a long way, right? It's a hamburger too, at
Right.
McDonald's for your kid. So we don't want there to be any barrier to entry when it comes to cost, because we already know how prohibitive the cost is to see a therapist, and those costs are usually out of pocket, which is why there's always a trade-off between your physical and your mental health.
Right. Yes, unfortunately, that is true worldwide.
Yes, that is true
Worldwide.
worldwide. Yes.
I appreciate how on the app it says it's anonymous, affordable, and available. Now I like how you have the old AAA there. Anonymous, affordable, and available 24/7. I like how you have it all set up and how it's each user is completely anonymous. So there's nothing telling when you're sharing whatever it is that you feel the need to share in whatever group you're in. There is no telling information of who you are within each
Yes.
other. It's just people. You're just
Right.
people sharing. And I appreciate that. And I like how that you have that set up, because mental health is very difficult for many people to talk about. And in different places, I'm in a different country than you are. I don't know how it is in different countries or with different cultures. I just know with different generations from my family, there are certain generations you never spoke of it ever.
Yes.
Nothing leaves the house. If there's an issue, nothing leaves the house. And then that next generation, my mom's generation, still the same.
Hmm.
We don't air our dirty laundry.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
With my generation, it seems to be opening up a little bit more, but there's still stigma attached to mental health issues. So if I live with PTSD, but I don't personally, I don't say I have a mental health issue. Even saying that out loud to myself feels like I'm putting myself down. That's it's how my brain works. So I live with PTSD and I've learned how to live with it because I cannot change history. I can't change what happened, but what I can do is take that and turn it into something positive.
Yes. And also, what you can do is not have to suffer with it alone,
Right,
which is what we always think. I must be the only one going through this. Like, who else would possibly understand this? And I know I felt like that too when talking to my partner, talking to my friends. Now, you get kind of mixed responses when it comes to mental health, because either they downplay it, so they say, "Oh, come on, it's not that bad. Burnout, like what is that? That's not even a real mental health issue," because it wasn't back then, to be honest.
right,
But it was they downplay it, or they say they kind of give you the generic, "Oh, look on the bright side, things will get better," things like that. And then when they leave you, they talk about it behind your back, like, "Oh, wow, she's so messed up. She's so
Right.
messed up. I can't believe she perceives things like this. And maybe we should also kind of. So there's absolutely a stigma attached to mental health still. That's
Yeah.
first, let's clear that up. There are some issues that it's okay to talk about mental health now, and those seem to be specifically work related mental health issues. So high stress, burnout, anxiety, depression, sexual harassment at work. I know you've probably with the movements you've seen, the need for transparency when it comes to really how you're treated at work and having a healthy work-life balance. The mental health issues that are related to work, it seems to somehow be acceptable to talk about it publicly. But if you're a sexual assault survivor, or you struggle with PTSD, or you struggle with I don't even something else that you wouldn't even a learning disability, or these can all have mental health ramifications, and it's not so okay to talk about them because somehow they're not mainstream enough. And I really think that everyone is going to struggle with some mental health issue in their lives. It, it
Yeah.
it will inevitably happen to everyone. If it hasn't happened to you yet, you're lucky.
Right.
But
But
you
it
should
will.
never have to struggle. Yeah, and you should never have to struggle with it alone,
Right.
because there are so many other people going through the same thing you are. Even if you think your mental health issue is niche, there are many people struggling with their identity, how to identify themselves. Or there are many people who struggle with if you're a minority, you seem to get the brunt of it, like discrimination and racism. It's like you will go through that at some point, and unfortunately that's the truth. And now you have all of these tech issues that really exacerbate mental health and really make it much more challenging and difficult to feel FOMO, to feel like, oh, I missed this thing, and oh, my life is so sad, or to just be isolated from others. And what this app is really trying to do is build a kind of global mental health community where it doesn't matter where you're located, it doesn't matter your gender, none of the demographics really matter. And we're not collecting it from you, so you don't have to worry about disclosing any of that if you don't feel comfortable. It's just a place for you to come and exchange and learn from each other, hopefully. To be able to build a bond, an experience with other people who get you in a way that other people, that society can't get you, let's say. Because on the outside you can look perfectly fine, we all know that, but on the inside you could really be in a dark place. And that's really, really dangerous if you feel like you're alone, because that's when all these self-harm ideas come into place, or harming others. And so what we're really trying to do is to get people to be proactive about their mental health as well. So even if your mental health issue isn't that bad, it's always a good idea to have this kind of community that you can access at any time. And when you talk about Gen Z, I think it's even more important for them, because my child one day might come to me and tell me that he or she is cyberbullied. I will have absolutely no idea how to respond to this, because I don't know what that entails from a mental health standpoint. The only thing I can do is point them in the direction of, well, here are a group of other people who have gone through cyberbullying. Maybe they can help you out. And if you share your experience with them, maybe you'll find a community there that can point you in the right direction, or try to help you in some way, right? But that's all I can do as a parent. And it's really sad, because we keep telling people to shove down your feelings, but that ends in violence a lot of the time. And how often can we continue that cycle? So I really hope that this app offers sanctuary, really, for people who are struggling with mental health, and they really feel like they have nowhere else to go.
Now, do you have safety measures in place for an instance that may crop up, which more than likely will at some point as this grows, for someone, you they're just, it's peer to peer, but at times you do need a professional um,
Yes.
for certain levels. So do you have certain safety measures in place for someone, say you've got folks talking in a group and one person is really bound and determined to do self-harm, and
Yes.
unable to, the people listening or chatting with them, they're not equipped to deal with that.
Yes, yes. So we don't monitor the groups actively. I will say that from the beginning. But there's a small exception to that rule, and it's exactly this. So if certain words are entered into the chat, like suicidal, self-harm, weapons, guns, knives, anything that can somehow remotely be connected to harming yourself, we automatically, it's like the chatbot kind of automatically takes over and lists all of the different resources available in every country, suicide prevention hotlines in almost every country. Unfortunately, some countries don't still have suicide prevention hotlines, which is another thing we need to fix later. But one thing at a time, I suppose.
Right.
But this is automatic. This is really something where we cannot because we don't want people to feel like an admin is watching them, is monitoring what they say, right? Because then you cannot authentically be yourself. So that's not what we're doing. We're not in the groups, we're not monitoring the groups. So one way that this gets triggered is if certain words are entered that kind of indicate self-harm, and we honestly, we don't have them all yet. We have a few that we've seen that will trigger the app. There are some that are missed, so this is still unfortunately a work in progress, because we can't possibly think of every scenario where someone wants to commit self-harm and types that very explicitly into the group, right?
Right.
So the other thing we do is we constantly remind the group that they're policing each other in a way. So maybe not to that extreme, right? But if someone comes in the group for a nefarious purpose, because we don't know anything about the people, you don't see their face, you don't see their nothing, right? They're a broccoli emoji. So you don't know anything about who they are or what their intentions might be. But let's say you get someone in the group and they're constantly spewing bigoted comments, or they're misogynist, or they're more likely they're pushing a product. That's what we see more
Mm.
often than not. They're onto the group and they will push a new type of cream that makes you feel beautiful or anything like that. When we see, because most of the time this is kind of almost in a spam type of format, most of the time when that happens, we ask that the other people in the group flag that message to us. And when a message gets flagged to us, that's really the indication that the admins can get involved with that particular group. So when a message is flagged to us, we reach out to that user and we say, what in God's name is this? Why on earth would you be saying this? Could you please provide some explanation? And if they don't respond within 24 hours, then they're banned from the group. So you can still have the app on your phone, but you cannot enter any group, which for me defeats the purpose of even having the app on your phone. But because right now that's the only functionality that there is within the app, is to join the groups and be able to chat and talk and things like that. But you lose access to all of those things if you act in a nefarious way.
Me personally, that was one of my thoughts when I was, looking at the app. I'm thinking, well, what measures are in place safety
Yes,
wise?
yes, yeah,
Because obviously you would have to have something in place,
indeed,
because it falls back on you as as the
absolutely,
creator of
yeah,
the app. Ultimately you're responsible, and that's actually a big deal too. That's a big deal. So how did you work that, in your brain? You're thinking, no, I've got to get this out there and I know it's worth it, and it is. But then did you also think, but ultimately I'm responsible for however many people come in here. I've got to make sure that they're all kept safe.
indeed. Yeah, no, I mean, it's always a struggle, right? Like wanting to put something out in the world and protect people's privacy while doing it. So for me, that was really tantamount in the app, was
Mhm.
just really like, because I think it's impossible to share your story if people know too much about you, because they already have these preconceived notions about you. And then when you tell your story, it can look a certain way that it's not, right? And I think it's also hard to be authentic in that situation if you know that people are looking at your face and they're judging your hair and it suddenly becomes this really superficial thing, which is unfortunately what exists now. We have a lot of superficial ways to get in touch with each other
Right.
and dance in front of a camera and distract each other, but there's no real authentic platform to connect. And when you talk about authentic platforms and you talk about really being yourself, that means being vulnerable, being raw, being almost at times hard to listen to, right?
Mhm.
So there's always a struggle for me between protecting that person and making sure that that we do everything we can to not just protect their identity but also protect them as an individual. And that was really where the thinking came from, with this bot, the scanning bot that scans all of the different groups for these particular words. But in terms of policing, we knew from the beginning we needed to leave that up to the users. None of us as admins wanted to be checking in, because that's also like, that's pretty invasive, I would say, for a mental health peer-to-peer network, right? Because in a way, that's also when you think about support groups, right? There's a facilitator there listening to your stories, and there's nothing stopping the facilitator from then leaving that support group and posting about what she just heard, right? So it's like, are you actually protected in that scenario? And the idea is everybody's coming in with this good faith idea, and that's also in our terms and conditions that you agree to when you download the app. When you come into the group, it's like a wall of silence. It's just a circle of silence, right? You don't share, because if the thing is, if you share your story and you hear someone else's, there's an incentive to protect each other already kind of baked in there. And that's what we're really trying to create, is this kind of, we want people to share and feel like it's a safe space to share, because there isn't any reason for someone to take this story and put it somewhere else, because you know something about that person already that you could do the same. But we don't want to create this self-destructive
Right.
method. Everybody comes in, we share with each other, and we can't control people's behavior. We can only hope that people act with good intentions. And so yes, you are there's no app that is 100% safe, unfortunately. That just won't exist in this day and age. But we are doing our very best to try to protect not just the authentic experience of the user, but also their privacy, and from bad actors in the groups, right? Because unfortunately, that's also something you can't avoid. There's always going to be some, pardon my French here, but like some asshole in the
Right.
group that is going to say things that you just blatantly disagree with, or they don't jibe with the dynamic of the group, or it just feels out of place. And for this, we need to get involved, but we won't know that until you, the user, tell us about it, because we don't want to monitor you. You are in a safe space. You're only sharing with each other. We have no data about you, so we can't like trace and track you or anything like that. We don't know who's in each group, and so that's the point. We want you to be able to just share, and then if there is a bad actor in the group, you tell us, and we take action as quickly as possible.
Well, that's wonderful. And I'm sure that that's assuring to people that you have things in place. I know some folks are, and I am too, for certain things, leery about downloading apps,
Yeah,
because there's always that aspect of they're out there, they're listening, they're watching, they're recording, they're taking my data, the infamous they. So
yeah.
and I know a lot of folks that don't download certain apps because of that, which I understand that too. But I'm glad, and it's nice to hear and how you explained so transparently what you have in place, and I think that that's very reassuring. So I appreciate all that you've done to put this app together, because I do think it's desperately needed in the world, and I'm so glad that you and your team have brought this and introduced it to the world. And I look forward to seeing how it evolves and grows. The things that you want to see implemented within the app to see it grow. The games for mental health blew my mind. That's nothing I ever would have thought of. I think that's fascinating, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that grows and evolves. So share with the listeners, if you've got a website where they can learn more about you and more about this app.
So the app is called Confidential Conversations. You can download it on the App Store. You can download it on Google Play. As we've already mentioned, it does cost something to download it right now. So, but you can get a promo code, at least for Android, if you go onto the website and let me know. So the website is www.confidconvos.com. And we are on all major social media platforms, as much as we don't like to be. um, we Our handle is at confidconvos, so we are on Pinterest, we are on Twitter, we are on Instagram, we're on Snapchat. I think we're really on all of them at this point. Feel free to reach out and let us know. We're always posting things that we think are interesting in the mental health space, new technologies, new advancements with different mental health issues. And we also write a lot of thought leadership ourselves. So if you're interested in mental health, please go to the website and feel free to read what we wrote. There's one really interesting, maybe I'll leave with this. There's one really interesting piece of thought leadership there about AI and mental health. because that's a really big up and coming topic now. These idea of deep fakes and how do you know what's real and what isn't. And there are parts of that article that are written by ChatGPT, and we challenge you all to try to identify which those are, because really, unfortunately, right now, the way AI is evolving, it's going to be very hard to tell the difference between an AI and a human, what they write. So if we can start identifying those things ahead of time, hopefully it helps too in identifying these kind of deep fake uh, accounts, deep fake videos, because I don't think that's going to do anything but proliferate in the future. And I think that also has serious mental health ramifications as well. And it ups the odds when it comes to scamming and all these other things. So if you can be proactive in trying to identify what's fake and what's real, I think you're going to be much better off. So feel free to have a read, and yeah, let us know what you think.
Thank you very much. And all of those links and stuff will be in the show notes, folks. So it'll be in the description. So you will be able to click right on that and check everything out. Now, Nisha, I always ask my guests as we get ready to wrap up to leave a nugget of hope for the listeners. Just something little that they can tuck in their pocket and carry with them for the rest of the day.
I think the one thing that really helped me, and I had to constantly tell myself this as I was struggling with my own mental health issues, and I continue to struggle with my own mental health issues. Recovery is about the journey, not the destination. It sounds really cliche even when I say it out loud, but it's like a day to day process, and you can't rush it. And as much as you might want to, because believe me, I felt like that. I was just like, when is this storm going to be over? I am so tired of feeling like this. And I thought it was something that it was just like, okay, it's fleeting, it'll go away. And it doesn't go away. And you have to work so hard every day to make it to the next day. So try to find the joy, one thing that makes you happy each day, and write it down, keep it in your head, remind yourself about it, that it's great to be alive on this particular day, because that was enough to get me to the next day and to the next and to the next, and now here we sit talking, right? So it just that small little thing, or do something that brings you joy every day, right? But just one small little thing for yourself that nobody else understands, but that makes you happy, I think is super important. So don't rush the recovery journey. It's gonna take time. Accept that, and be prepared for the bumps along the way. But I really do think that the end of the road, when it comes, you're gonna look back and you're gonna feel amazing that you were able to do all of that. So
Yes, you will. You'll be
that's
amazed at yourself. You'll be amazed at
yeah,
yourself. Yeah, look what I came
indeed.
through.
Yep, we're all stronger than we think. Ah, that's it. That's the one I would like to leave instead. We're all stronger than we think we are.
I highlighted on my end, you can't rush it. That's a
Can't
big
rush
one
it.
right there. You cannot rush your journey.
No.
That's a good one. Well, thank you so much, Nisha, for being my guest today on Let Fear Bounce and sharing your app that I know is going to have or is having currently a powerful, positive impact on people. And I look forward to seeing how that's growing. I would love to have you back on in a few months' time to see how that's growing. And maybe, you've got some of your other things implemented. I'd love to hear all about it and your thoughts on it and how I'm sure that it's helping you as well when you're helping others. So beautiful stuff that you're doing, lady. I appreciate it. And I am sure the listeners appreciate all the work and effort that you put into putting something this powerful out into the world. So thank you very much for doing what you do.
Thank you very much for having me. It was really a lot of fun. And absolutely, I will come back anytime you ask.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right, everybody. That is Nisha Lehmann, my special guest today here on Let Fear Bounce. So this is Kim Langen, your host. Thank you so much once again for joining me and spending just a small part of your day with myself and my guest. Everybody out there, be well, stay well, and be blessed. And that is a wrap, my fearless friends. Thanks for bouncing along with me on another episode of Let Fear Bounce. I hope you're feeling a bit motivated and ready to take on any challenge that might come your way in the coming days. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode of Let Fear Bounce. Tune in each week for your dose of inspiration from my amazing guests from all over the world. So until next time, keep bouncing forward and stay fearless, my friends. Everybody be well, stay well, and above all, be blessed.